Now, I'm just going to say this right now that Gen Z and millennials, for the most part, not all of them, are pretty fucking soft. I think we all can understand this. I think we all see it. The story I'm about to present to you here today is, well, one that I guess you can expect. Let's go ahead and get right on over here to it. Feel tired after work? Do you feel tired after work? Well, for the record, I think all of us do, right? That's what work is. Even though this generation, Gen Z, or the Alpha generation, or the millennials, neither one of them have really experienced any real work. In fact, I'm even willing to say that even starting with my generation, Gen X, a lot of us don't do physical labor. The internet came to be, for the most part, during my generation. Internet and I guess online work started for the most part during my generation, or at least at the latest during the millennial generation. So basically, starting, I'd say, in the 80s, people began to make money online. Prior to that, yes, there was blue collar work. Yes, there was office work, but that was the only non-laborious work that typically you could get. Most people from the greatest generation, the boomers, and all of them, they worked with their hands. Listen, when I was young, a lot of older people used to say, when in my day, I used to walk to school 10 miles in the snow with no shoes on, and then, shit like that. They weren't really lying or over exaggerating. Things were way different and way harder for the generations even before me, right? As a Gen Xer, I can tell you things were far more hard for me, especially because we're considered the independent generation. We are the latchkey generation. We are the generation where none of our parents were home. We learned to raise ourselves at an extremely young age. So that's why a lot of us a lot of Gen Xers, for the most part, tended to be very masculine and loners. I actually did a show. I went on someone else's podcast the other day, and I was explaining to this person, I very much so am a loner. I don't really do family and friends and hanging out. I'm very much so dedicated to my craft, dedicated to being, my household, my house. I don't really do the hanging out thing. And I think that's because I was raised in a generation where there was a lot of time at home alone, just kind of the way it went, right? So anyway, back to the headline. Feel tired after work? Then you must be a member of Gen Z. Of course, they're sleepy as shit. Younger employees find a day's work more exhausting than the parents' generation. So let me get this straight. These fucking clowns, think that their day of work is harder or more. You know what? Let's just call it what it is. They're soft. They're weak. That's why they consider masculinity toxic, because masculinity snatches them up and says, look here, you little motherfucker, get your ass to work. Get out there and mow the grass. Yeah, the grass, it takes too long. Can't you hire a Mexican? Yes, I can, but you're going to get your monkey ass out there and mow the grass, right? They're not really fond of that type of thing. A lot of these kids, they would rather sit on the internet all goddamn day. They'd rather do the little multiplayer online gaming all goddamn day. Data found that 46% of Gen Z workers feel fatigued after a long day at the office. Remember when that wasn't the terminology used? A day at the office. Nobody had an office job. I didn't get an office job till the 2000s. A little bit in the 90s, but for the most part, the 2000s. Most people didn't have office jobs in my generation and before. But like I said, most people of their generation does. They complained that their workload and the stress left them feeling drained. And the stress. 40% of millennials said their job left them tired at the end of the day. But 19% of the workers from the baby boomer generation said the same thing. So I got a question for you. Why is it that 19% of boomers, they didn't whine about being exhausted or drained at the end of a day, but yet 46% of Gen Zers do? Why do you have to ask yourself, if you're not softer, why is it that you're more drained after a day of work than people that actually work physically with their hands? Why is that the case, right? Let's go ahead and scroll on down here, right? Let's continue on here. Younger employees find a day's work more exhausting than wage earners of their parents' generations, according to a new survey. Researchers found that 46% of Gen Z feel fatigued after a day at the office, factory, or shop floor. That's crazy. They complain the workload, combined with the stress and strain of holding down a job and the high expectations of their bosses, left them feeling, my boss wants me to work. This is how these motherfuckers are. I think I got a graphic for you. Let me bring this graphic up here. So for you guys that don't know the generations, let me show you right here. Greatest generation, 1901 to 1927. Silent generation, 27 to 46. Baby boomers, 46 to 64. Gen X, 64 to 80 actually is the answer. 81 starts millennials. Millennials, 81 to 2000. Gen Z, 2000 on. And then the next generation is called Generation Alpha, believe it or not. The next generation is called Generation Alpha. I sure hope so, right? I thought I had another graphic there, but I guess I don't. Give me just a second. All right, here we go. Now, when you look at it, so just so you get it, that's an idea of the generation. So if you don't know what generation you're in, that's the answer, right? 40% of millennials echoed the complaints by reporting that their employment also left them tired by the end of the working day. But just 19% of workers old enough to be their parents, the baby boomer generation, said that a day's work left them shattered. And they're 58 to 76 years old. And only 27% of my group, Gen X, from 42 to 57, said likewise. To compound their troubles, both Gen Z and millennial workers reported suffering feelings of helplessness and loneliness brought on by the pressures of work. For Gen Z, 61% said they were fearful of burnout, mental and physical exhaustion caused by long-term job stress, that it was compromised their aspirations. Business Advisory from Trash had discovered the extent of workplace fatigue by polling UK adults. The findings show younger people are under overwhelming stress at work, with almost half reporting fatigue brought on by the pressures and the demands of a hard day's work. Surprisingly, older workers, old enough to be the parents of the young staff, were less likely to report levels of stress and fatigue, probably because they're more conditioned to the working and to the demands of working life. With proper support and guidance, this can be corrected. Support and guidance, while preserving the mental health of the leaders of the businesses and their teams. Speaking of mental health, we're going to get that here in just a second. Gen Z more likely to report mental health concerns. Jesus Christ. There's something wrong with us. We're not feeling well. Our mental health is damaged. Shut the fuck up and go to work. A burnout workforce is one of the biggest barriers that inhibit businesses from growing effectively. The study conducted by the British Polling Council on behalf of Trashette also known that 28% of Gen Z workers could not remember the last time they spent quality time with their families because of the demands of work. Almost 3/4 of workers in the age bracket said that they wanted to find a new job that leaves them less tired, while 65% would consider starting their own business. Right? How you gonna do that, broke motherfuckers? You know what? Let me find this. Let me find something. Found it. Let's go ahead and check this out real quick. Average hours per day. I want you to look at all this shit. This shit should tell you everything. Average hours per day. In fact, I think there was another chart here. Yeah, here we go. Average hours per day, millennials and non-millennials spent on household activities in 2017. Now, you may be saying, why are we bringing up millennials? Because my belief is that millennials and Gen Z, millennials were the start of this. The whiny, beta, frail generation. Now, I want you to look at everything. Millennials and Gen Zers are crying the most, saying they're the most tired, but I want you to look at the amount of time spent on most activities. Give me a second. On all household activities, non-millennials 37 and over are crushing them. On housework, crushing them. Food preparation and cleanup, pretty much the same way, even though it's the millennials and Gen Zers that do all that healthy food prep, right? Lawn and garden, look how they don't take care of any of their lawns. Probably because they all live in little shacks for the Great Reset, right? Household management, they even slack there. We're talking about time spent, right? Let's continue on here. Average hours per day spent on selected leisure and sports activities. Watching TV. Non-millennials watch a lot more TV. That is true. But here's socializing and communicating. That's the only thing they beat us at so far. They socialize and communicate. That means the phone. Way more than we do. Relaxing and thinking. We got them beat there. Reading for personal interest. We beat them there. Playing games, they beat us there. Computer use for leisure, excluding games, we're even. Participating in sports, exercise, and recreation, they barely beat us. And then they barely beat us. So, and the reason I show you that is because I think we can agree that in most situations, right, we pretty much... In most categories, everybody millennial and older, we put in more time in it, including work. We're not exhausted. We're not tired. We're not whiny. We're not crying. Our mental capacity isn't damaged. But these people don't do any housework, anything at home at all, other than game and communicate. And then they go to work and they're stressed out because they got to work a few hours in a goddamn office. When's the last time you saw a Gen Xer, a Gen Zer or a millennial with their hands dirty? When's the last time you saw that? The entire point behind all of this is this just shows that the generations keep getting softer. Now, am I surprised in that? No, because it's the emasculation of America and the pushing of the, limperist agenda. All of our men are turning soft. Soft. And you can see that by the fact that they're whining and crying about how their job has them mentally stressed. Just go to work, man. It's not really that hard. What do you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments section.